Hello and welcome to Fourth Coach Conversations. I'm your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. This is a show brought to you by D1Baseball.com and presented by, let's do that first, our good friends at Netting Professionals. So Netting Professionals are presenting sponsor. They specialize in the design, fabrication, and installation of custom netting for college baseball programs all around the country. The next time your field or facility needs something new, make sure you check out the guys at Netting Professionals. I say this every week. These guys love our sport so much. They're so supportive. They're supportive not of just of this show, of many shows that are around college baseball. So I just want to encourage everyone. These people support us. Really important that we support them back. They're really good. The product's great. They're even better people. So again, special thanks to the folks at Netting Pros. So I'm going to do the intro really quick. If any of you that have watched the first 7 episodes, this is the 8th. This is the Ocho. We saved the best for 8th. We got a great roster here. But, we have a weird thing in college baseball that the entry-level position on a Division I staff is the volunteer coach, but you're the 4th coach, and you're legitimately coaching Division I college baseball athletes. I mean, Michael Earley, who's on this call, has coached a first pick in the entire draft. So it's just dumb. We can't be paid by the schools. We can't have benefits. We can't off-campus recruit, which is the dumbest part of it all. But that's the world we're living in. So we wanted to use this show as a chance to meet these guys, give them some exposure. As I've said to you guys, I hope it's the start of many conversations. And selfishly, I really wanted to get to know that this is the lifeblood of our profession. This is the up-and-comers in the profession. So that's the intro. This is the 8th episode. We've had a blast. The time will go very quickly. So let's go to my first question. I want you guys to talk way more than I do. And Jimmy, I'm going to start with you. And just baseline us, guys. Just give me a bullet point of your resume, meaning hometown, playing career, coaching career. Just take me through the bullet points. Jimmy, you kick us off.
Yeah, I'm Jimmy Frankos. I'm from Park Ridge, Illinois. It's a suburb of Chicago. I played 4 years at the University of Iowa. Right when I was done playing at the University of Iowa, I went and I was the assistant coach at Heartland Community College. I was there for 2 years as an assistant coach, and then I was promoted to head coach. I was a head coach there for a year and a half. After that year and a half was up, I actually took the volunteer job at my alma mater, the University of Iowa. Kind of went through there through the COVID times, was there for a year and a half. And then this last summer in August, I took the volunteer job here at Northwestern University.
Jimmy, I didn't know you. So if I heard you correctly, you actually became the head coach at Heartland?
I was the head coach for a year and a half. So it would have been 2018, 2019. And I left in the winter, basically that January, right before COVID started.
And so was that something where the head coach you were working for left and then they interviewed a bunch of people, they picked you, or was it the middle of the year? Or how did it go down?
Yeah, so the head coach at the time when I was the assistant there was Brian Furlong. And he was the head coach there for two seasons. And then he left for the job he has now. He's the pitching coach at Xavier. And so when Brian left, I'd interviewed with, a handful of other guys, and it was about a 2-3 week process. And I was actually about ready to take the volunteer job at Austin P at the time. And then this interview came up, and I got the job, and I was there for a year and a half as the head coach.
Love it. What's the biggest thing that surprised you being the head coach? Like something that a responsibility that kind of came out of left field at you?
Everything that goes on off the field. I had absolutely no idea kind of the administrative work, you're dealing with teachers, you're dealing with the academic advisor, you're dealing with the athletic director. You're doing a lot of other stuff other than actually coaching baseball. And that was something, at the time I was 24 years old when I got the job. So I really, I went from player to coach, and at 24, I was the head coach, and I was kind of thrown into it. I loved it. But yeah, that was the administrative side of things was one thing I really had no idea that went on in the coaching world, really.
That's awesome. I love it. Very cool. I want to come back to your Iowa stuff in a little bit, but that's great. Good stuff.
Sure.
Michael, go ahead.
Hello, Michael Earley. I'm the hitting coach at Texas A&M. I'm from Anderson, Indiana. Played college baseball at Indiana University, then played with the White Sox for, I think, 5 seasons. After that, 1 year with the Southern Illinois Miners. Right after that, I got lucky and, went to Arizona State for my first job. I was there for 5 seasons with Coach Smith. Great times there. And, currently I'm at A&M and loving it. So, gig 'em.
So Michael, so your playing career, I looked it up. Senior year, double-digit steals and home runs. Bravo, that's amazing. I wish you're elite fantasy player in that regard. Love that. Hey, I'm going to ask you some.
Blew on my back a little bit.
That's right. Well said. So some of the questions I'll ask you are obvious ones, but I think they'll be good for the instant. And I've never had a chance to kind of break this down with you. But so were you there for all 3 years of Spencer Torkelson?
Yeah. So it was my second year as a coach, but first year I became hitting coach. So he was his freshman class, but there's a lot of other good players, and Hunter Bishop was a sophomore. Those were the guys I got to start out with. So, pretty lucky on that end. So.
Yeah, we may come back to Hunter Bishop. His story is amazing. But let me ask you about Torque. So, obviously he was the first pick overall in the 2020 draft. He's continued to rake in pro ball. So here's my question. Like, I'll compare him. He had a better career in many ways, but, Dustin Pedroia, who we had at Arizona State, like, we knew in recruiting that, hey, like, this dude, we would be shocked if he's not an awesome player. My question is, when did you guys know Torkelson could – I don't recall him being a recruit of that acclaim. So I guess the question is, when did you know, like, this is a real, like, freakish dude?
It's funny. He came in, he actually had a broken hand, so he didn't even play that much in the fall. And then the spring and fall, he only hit one home run. But there's a couple days right before the season where we were doing just front toss on the field and then followed by machine. And I'd never seen anyone hit balls out like that with such ease. So, and then once you got into playing, you realized how smart he was. It wasn't just talent. I think there was one night specifically where we were all like, okay, this dude's different. You've played at Long Beach State. It was probably 35 degrees, cold, nasty. We're getting beat pretty bad. He comes up in the 8th inning and he hits a ball at Long Beach in the 8th that just disappears. And then he comes up again, somehow gets back around in the 9th and he hits another one, just disappears. And anyone who's ever played at Long Beach at night when it's cold, it's absolutely impossible. So we all kind of looked around and we're like, this dude might be different. And then he just really never stopped hitting home runs, and pretty easy guy to coach.
I mean, like, and hitting them to center field, like, what freshman ever even thought that you could hit a home run to center field, let alone, oh my gosh. Yeah. He 25 jacks his freshman year, right? Led the country, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. 25 that year. And then he followed up with 23, and then he had 6 and 17 games of COVID. And he had the best stat ever is he had, I think, 35 walks roughly, which is in 17 games, which is more than any ASU team in a season in the history of the school. So
crazy.
Pretty wild. Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. All right, cool. Very, very good. Todd, go ahead.
Hey, so grew up in Fullerton.
Oh, so give your name, Todd. I'm the only one that knows you.
Todd Yost. I'm coaching at Cal State Northridge. I grew up in Fullerton. Played high school baseball at El Dorado. Played junior college ball at Fullerton, and then I transferred to Westmont College in Santa Barbara, and graduated there. And then I got right into coaching. I went back, started at Fullerton College, was there for a year, and then this past year I was in Nashville at Trevecca Nazarene, and I think in late August I got over here at CSUN.
So Todd, how did you get to Nashville? How'd you get to Trevecca Nazarene? Is there a California connection there?
So one of my really good buddies, he played at Tennessee, and I would go visit him like over winter break and, just work out over there. And they were doing youth camps, and the volunteer that was at UT was running those camps. So I kind of helped out and, got to know him a little bit. And then right when this season ended last year, he got the head job over at Trevecca, and then he had a volunteer spot opened up, and he needed an infield guy, and it kind of just worked out perfectly.
Love it. Who was your buddy that played it? Yeah, I had to Google where Trevecca Nazarene is. I know. Yeah. And then you guys went to the World Series too, right?
Yeah, we did. It was a pretty crazy. It was a pretty crazy year. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Who was your buddy that played at Tennessee?
Kyle Serrano.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. Max, go ahead.
Max Feske. I'm at Pepperdine University. I'm from North Hollywood, California. I went to Notre Dame High School in Sherman Oaks. From there, I went to Glendale College, played a year there, went to Webster University in St. Louis, Missouri. And then after graduating from there, became a high school coach at Notre Dame High School before going back to get a master's degree and coaching for a year under Coach Moore at Cal State Northridge. And then for the next 2 years, getting a different master's degree at Pepperdine and joining Coach Hertensteiner's staff before this year getting promoted into the volunteer position.
Love it. So Max, tell me, so Notre Dame High School, I think Mike Stanton, right? Like, were you there for Stanton's years?
No, I was actually I'm between the two guys that are most famous. I'm right after Stanton as a player, and like my first year as a coach was Hunter Green's senior year. So
oh my gosh, Hunter Green.
Right between the two guys that kind of got famous out of there. But it's been a unique place to kind of grow up baseball wise and have a lot of guys history wise coming back. We had when Chris Dickerson was playing with the Yankees, he would come back. Brendan Ryan would come back during the offseason. Different guys who were playing, and experiencing, really high level teammates coming back and sharing things with high school players. And it was a really unique place to be.
That's amazing. Well, hey, tell me with Pepperdine. So I'm picturing recruiting trips, like you bring the family to home plate, you look out in left field, there's Pacific Ocean, and you just like, are we done yet? Like, everybody good? Like, the answer is yes. I'm kidding, of course, but what saw you guys hit, like, you guys are like not a West Coast team. You hit like 60 jacks last year. Does the Pacific Ocean impact the way the ball travels there, or is it more just an aesthetic thing?
Definitely. I mean, that's one of the common jokes is that Eddie D is the stadium that we play in, Eddie D Field Stadium. It's been our home field since the late 70s. Yeah, the ball does not travel very well there, but we had a very offensive team last year. We had a lot of older guys. I credit Coach Danny Worth working tirelessly with those guys. He's an incredible guy to be kind of learning from and working alongside, and the way he works to get better every day. That kind of year where they hit 63 home runs in 45 games last year is a testament to really the work he put in with those guys.
Love it. Very cool. Dallas, go ahead. Oh, you muted yourself. You hit it twice, I think.
There we go.
Good.
Okay,
Gotcha.
guys, I'm Dallas Burke. I'm the volunteer assistant coach at Penn State University, and I'm originally from Bettendorf, Iowa. I went to Davenport Central High School, and after that, I played 2 years at the University of Iowa and finished my playing career at Missouri Southern University. After that, I got right into coaching. I've been the fall of 2013. In the spring of 14, I actually played and coached at a European academy club in Germany. So I got to do some European swing for about 6 months. It was a pretty amazing experience, actually, getting to coach kids that baseball's not really a big deal and English is not the first language. So, and then after that, I came back to Blackhawk, did that for 2 more years, and then got on at Bowling Green State University as a volunteer assistant, helped with catchers and hitters there, and then went to West Virginia University after that. And then I've spent the last 4 years here at Penn State University. So.
Gosh, that's awesome. Well-traveled, Dallas. So the Europe thing, how did that happen? How did Europe end up on your radar?
When I was done playing at Missouri Southern, I messed around a little bit with some independent ball stuff, and I wasn't sure I wanted to really hang them up yet, and did some research, had a few connections, had a guy reach out to me, and I was like, why not give this thing a try and see what it's all about? And I'm a history major, so traveling the world, getting to see that stuff was something that I always wanted to do. And if you could connect with baseball, I was like, why not? So.
Love it. Hey, Dallas, let me ask you this question without getting too personal, but so you're an Iowa kid, and what I read about your career at Iowa started out great. Like you played a lot your first 2 years, had success, and then you transferred. And I think when the transfer rule went into play this year, a lot of people were freaking out, and I understand why. I don't want to minimize that, but hey, it's not always the wrong thing. Like sometimes, but also there are young people making this decision. So like if you were given advice, maybe this is the best way to frame it. If you were given advice to a player that was thinking, I'm thinking about transferring, what as you look back on the decision you made, good, bad, or indifferent, like what is the advice you would give someone that's kind of pondering that?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I think it's so personal, that
Yeah.
question is. And I think that for me personally, it worked out great. I wouldn't be coaching today if I hadn't done that for myself. But the advice that I would give is you got to go with what you feel like is the best situation. And you're right, that not everybody has the same situation as somebody else. For me personally, it was about enjoying the game again. So
Yeah.
If that's the way it is, and that's the way it is for other people. I know maybe it's an academic thing, maybe it's something else, but that's a really tough one to give anybody any actual advice on. So, because the grass isn't always greener. So,
yeah. Yeah, and it's hard. I think the hardest part is you're going to make an emotional decision. I don't know how it's possible to pull emotion out of a decision like that, but you do, you do have to make it as calculated as you can. But yeah, that's good insight. I totally agree. It's so super individual, no doubt about it. So cool. All right, boys, number 2, coming back to you, Jimmy. So I want you to pick one area of the game: offense, hitting, base running, a position, outfield play, infield play, pitching, whatever it is. Pick one area, the area that you hold closest to your heart, and I want you to give me your core beliefs in 3 sentences or less. So I'm really asking you for your most important core beliefs. So take the area that you're most passionate about, 3 sentences or less, what you believe. Go ahead, Jimmy.
I'll go with hitting.
Mm-hmm.
In 3 cents or less, I guess I'll go with, when you get to college ball, I think for me, it all starts with an approach. Have a plan and an approach when you get to the box, and the confidence that, you're going to see some big time arms and some guys you haven't seen before, especially for the young guys that you're going to need to have the confidence to compete. Have a plan, have an approach, be a competitor, and have the confidence that you can win every battle you go into.
When you're looking at your freshman hitters, Jimmy, do you feel like I believe in both of those things very much, confidence and approach. Do you feel like one trumps the other for a freshman that is, confident? They don't even know why they're born with it. Do you think that's more important, or do you feel like even that kid with the wrong approach is just going to get torn up?
It's a little bit of both. I would, if you have a freshman that's pretty confident, you have a chance. There's a lot of times you get the freshmen,
Yeah.
most of here, the freshmen that come in, they're the best player on their team. They've never really failed. They've never had hardships, and they come into college baseball and face, nowadays the 23 or 24-year-old COVID senior on the bump, their first at bat in the fall. I think confidence, you can teach approach. You can talk about approach. You can educate the younger hitters on what needs to, what can happen in a college at bat. But if you don't have a confidence, I don't think you really have the chance to be a good hitter. Now, there's some outliers. There's some guys who are just naturally born better than everybody else. But for 99% of the guys, I would say confidence first.
When you played at Iowa, Jimmy, what was your either swing thought or approach thought? What was the simplest version of the approach that you tried to take, and the best version of yourself in Iowa?
If you look at my numbers, I had approximately 0 career home runs. So my thing going into the box was I couldn't strike out, and it's probably a bad thought, but I wanted to be the toughest out that I could be. I kind of hit all over the lineup throughout my 4 years, but I just wanted to be the toughest out, a situational hitter. I could bunt, I could move a guy, I could find a gap, just pretty much everything but hit a home run. And I knew that, and I think that's what made me successful, was that I knew who I was, and that's, I kind of stuck to who I was. I didn't try to be anybody that I wasn't.
Love it. Very cool. Michael, go ahead.
I have to go with hitting as well. For me, it's biggest thing is you got to be competitive. In my opinion, I think a lot, like you said, a lot of guys come to college, they're good, but how competitive are you? Number 2 is you got to be able to communicate. You have freshmen that come in and talking's not always a strong suit, but it's hard to help a kid if you can't communicate, and you got to learn their style of communication. And I think the third one would be just overall work ethic, at least in the programs I've been in. If you don't work, you get left behind. So, communication, work ethic, and how competitive are you, I think leads to how good a player you can be. I mean, you can talk. We don't have enough time to talk all swing mechanics and things like that, but I think core things, if you don't have, I think you really struggle.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, Michael, so follow-up question. So you referenced Hunter Bishop, who's another great story. So you were there for Hunter's sophomore and junior year at Arizona State. Is that correct?
All 3 years. I just wasn't
All
the hitting coach per se his freshman
Okay.
year. Yeah.
Got it. So here's what I want to ask you about Hunter. So Hunter's a great story. This kid was freakish athlete, 6'5", runs like a deer. He was a Division I football recruit as a wide receiver, could have gone to any Pac-12 school he wanted on football scholarship. Comes to Arizona State to play baseball. Really gets his butt kicked for 2 years. I mean, especially his sophomore year. And again, I think Hunter is a wonderful kid. Like, he's bright, great intentions. Like, he's an amazing human being. But my perception of him was he was kind of the perfectionist. Like, he was always trying to chase the perfect swing and getting, like, literally nullifying his own athleticism. But then his junior year just blossoms, right? Like, I think 10th pick overall or something. I mean, just goes from 5 home runs to like 22 home runs, and just, like, you can't get him out. He's taking games over. So my question, Michael, is what are your takeaways from that Hunter's development? Because, like, we all want our own version of Torkelson, where it's like, oh wow, that was like the best recruit in the history of mankind. Like, this, if we stay out of his way, this is going to be good. What Hunter is like, that's a tougher journey. So yeah, any takeaways you have on Hunter Bishop's journey?
He was so his talent was through the roof. So it really was just about being consistent in his day to day. And it was as simple as, hey man, like, and to his credit, he did all the work. It's like, stick with this stance, stick with these 3 or 4 drills, no matter what. And I blame myself a little bit for, his second year, because I gave him probably too much freedom, which I love to give guys freedom, but I was a young coach, so it was probably a little too much freedom. Like, yeah, go ahead, do that. When it finally came down to, look, man, like, let's just stick to this, and it was his idea. So it was perfect. I'm like, yeah, do that, stick to it, stay with it, 3-4 things every single day, and just let the talent take over. And, I all the time, I blame myself for, that second year. I should have coached him up a little better, but, to his credit, he really worked through that. And the struggles that he had were the only reason that he had that good year, because he learned how to deal with those kind of things. And when you talk about talent, like, it doesn't get really much more talented than that on a baseball field.
No. So he was ready, like his third year, he was ready to simplify. Like, he was ready to just pick something and go with it.
Yeah, I mean, the kid, he grew up a lot. Like, he's got his own story. I'm not going to get into, but he really just grew up, and it was about just maturity and anything over talent. The talent was always there. I mean, even those years he only hit 5 home runs. Like, some of those 5 home runs, he literally won games by himself. So you knew it was in there. It's just about being consistent with it. And he really just grew up, and he just took over, and it was special.
Oh, it was crazy. Like, this, of course, I live in Arizona, so I get to watch the Sun Devils play a lot. But I mean, like, you were excited to drive to the ballpark. Like, you didn't know what this kid was going to do. I mean, it was like a freak show football athlete. He had like 50 walks too. I mean, it was, he hit balls that were so dumb. You're like, what did he?
Yeah.
It was awesome.
That first half, there was 2 or 3 games. By his second at bat, he'd already ended the game. We had a great year, started off 21-0, but he won the game after the 4th inning after he hit twice. So it was cool.
Yeah, really cool. Super fun. Todd, go ahead. 3 sentence or less core belief. Go for it.
Yeah, I'll talk about infield. I think especially with how much people need to move around, and some, I won't say like extreme shifts, but infielders are always moving around. They got to play different spots. So I think the most important thing is, first off, is to have a good first step, field the ball in athletic position, and then make a good throw. I mean, I know that's super vanilla, but I mean, I like to keep things simple. So
yeah, that's good. Let me give you a couple follow-up, Todd. So you grew up in Fullerton, and obviously the Titans have had a million incredible college infielders. I'm assuming you were a Titan fan. If you weren't, correct me. But if you were, like, who were your guys? Like, who were the Titan infielders that you looked up to growing up?
Well, I started going to games over there in like 2003, like when they had, kind of that run. I can't talk about them too much. They're in our conference.
Right, that's right.
I'm just kidding. But
And Coach Serrano can't wear his national championship ring. Gosh,
yeah,
dang,
I know
that's
he's gonna kill
tragic.
me. But I would
Oh.
say when I was playing travel ball, I played locally over here, and when Justin Turner was there, he was giving me infield lessons. So he was a guy, and then I think a little later I was a big I liked Christian Cologne a lot. So those
Nice.
would be my guys.
4th pick overall. Hey,
Yeah.
final question on infield play. How do you coach infielders in the shifting era where like these guys could play, they could be in a million different spots? Do you try to minimize the number of spots they're going to go to, or do you just have to coach good mechanics, and these guys are going to have to trust that, wherever you end up on the field based on our shift, you just have to be an athlete and figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely it gets pretty funky like when guys move around. So we try to just kind of have fun with it, and we'll tell the guys before we'll break into stuff. We'll just say like, you guys, like, we're gonna have everyone move around to different positions. You're gonna move around. Don't get mechanical. Just be athletic and just make the play. And they have a blast doing that. I mean, they definitely do have a lot of fun doing that. So I would say just tell them, make the play, get it out. You guys are Division I baseball players, so you're good.
Yeah. God, it's just amazing. Like you'll watch a game and you hear somebody say, I don't know if he's got enough arm to stay at shortstop. And you're like, I don't even know what a shortstop is anymore, right? Like how many pitches does a person actually stand at shortstop for? It's almost like you stand there for the anthem and then that's it. I mean, it's just what a crazy age we're in. So it's fun though. Go ahead, Max.
So I'll jump on catching since no one's done it, and that's kind of the one I've been jumping into the most recently. And I'll say that my new metaphor is that catching's like waiting tables. It's a service industry, and you're going to provide the pitcher with basically his meal for the day, what he's able to execute, what he's not able to execute. The more that you know your table, the easier it is to wait that table. As far as knowing a pitcher's arsenal, what he throws, where it's going to be, and the ability to receive it and anticipate it. And then finally, if you lose your cool, you lose your job. So you got to be with that table, whether that table's throwing a temper tantrum or they're having the best meal of their life. You got to be there and you got to be steady and you got to keep on serving them. So
Gosh, that's great.
That's been mine for the fall.
Consider that stolen, Max. That is awesome. Very cool.
Right.
Hey, I meant to ask you this question first time through. So you ended up playing at Webster from a California junior college. How did that connection happen? What caused that?
Absolute happenstance. I ran into a former teammate in summer ball. He said, "Hey man, you want to come and play at this school in the Midwest?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, maybe." And he said, "Well, we're going to go play in a D3 World Series and you're going to get a chance to play a lot. Do you want to come?" And I'm like, maybe. And so he then had the coach call me and he said similar things. And without ever going there, without ever taking a visit, anything, I jumped on board. And really, it was a beautiful place to be baseball wise. You play in an independent league stadium. Well, actually, one of the coach for the minors, the Southern Illinois Miners, came and gave our speech one year. I don't know if you were a fire eater, Coach Earley, but that was one of the most unique kind of people I've been able to come across in my life. But Webster University, it's a heck of a program. Bill Courage has really done an unbelievable job building something that it takes care of itself from the top to the bottom. The upperclassmen really teach the younger guys how their brand of baseball works, and they've found their way to the D3 World Series quite a few times over the last decade. So it's really, it's one of those things I laugh about, being a proud Gorlock, because not many people have ever heard of that mascot or know what that is. But, being a person who's played in that program and now gets to be at the Division I level, I'm certainly proud to kind of hold that honor.
Oh, that's awesome. If we have time, we'll have to come back to Fire Eater because I really am looking forward to hearing more about that. That sounds amazing. Not that I'm in the market to be eating fire, but I want to hear about it for sure. Dallas, go ahead.
I'll do hitting, even though some of the stuff may go over into catching, which I do a lot of, but it's, the first one's aggressive. I want the guys to be aggressive because in this game, nothing really goes well when you go into it tentatively, whether it's your drill work or game. After that, adjustability, whether we're talking bat path, hands, or we're talking about situational adjustability, focus. And then after that is, I'm a big believer in internal competitive self-drive. And I think we can continue to create that kind of environment, eventually with the other things, you're going to really start to trust your training. And I think that's such a big go back to whether things are going good or bad. It's a consistent process of being able to trust their training. And a lot of that's competitive self-drive. So that's big. I guess that's about what I got there.
Hey, Dallas, let me ask you this. So did you catch all of your years of college playing, or did you play different positions, Dallas?
I played a little left and right field and snuck around for some second when they'd let me, but yeah.
Nice. Let's stick with offense. It feels like, obviously I'm a Pennsylvania guy. I love Coach Cooper, one of my favorite people in our game. So I pay attention to Penn State, and it seems like offensively things have ticked up fairly significantly in the last couple of years. So I'm just curious, and I know you've only been there for the 3 of the years, but has it been an adjustment in the type of athletes you're recruiting? Is it kind of the way you're training them? But or maybe, hey, you just had an older group that for 2 years kind of raked. But I'm curious what in your mind, because, the statistics I looked at least in a league that's as competitive as the Big Ten, I mean, you guys, we're getting it done offensively.
Yeah, no, it's, a lot of that credit goes to Coach John Moore. He's done a great job. Him and I tag team with the hitters. And, 4 years ago when we got here, I think we were maybe the worst offensive team in the Big Ten at that point, when you could pick up almost any statistical category. And maybe we were first in strikeouts, which is something you don't want to be first in. But so I think it's a mixture of things, though. I think obviously the magic's in the players. So when you're starting to recruit better players, that helps a ton. And then I also think just the consistency and the work ethic of those players and us being able to put in front of them, something that they love and they want to buy into, and making it personal, for them. I think that's so big. And not, I would say this in Penn State's, in our program here, it's not one guy's doing the exact same thing. There are things that overlap, but I think that's really helped, because it's not easy to go from where we were offensively to where I think we're at right now. And a lot of it's been done with some young guys. It's that COVID year obviously was really interesting because of, guys that are third year in college now. Technically, you look at it and, man, it's really only 2 years they've had. Not even really, going into this year. So I think it's just a mixture of a lot of things. I think it's great communication, but obviously the magic's in those players. Those guys have held a way higher standard offensively, and it's contagious, that. So there's a lot of good stuff. And Coach Cooper, I mean, at the end of the day, him being able to lead the group as well. I mean, he's got his hands in a little bit of everything here, but his message offensively is extremely good. I mean, you got to look at his track record. Everywhere he's been, teams hit. So I think that was a matter of time as well, So he is a very, very good hitting instructor, and I've learned a lot from him.
That's awesome. Love it. Very cool. All right, Jimmy, let's come back to you. So you're going on a job interview, and let's say I'm the AD or the head coach that's interviewing you, and I'm going to make 3 phone calls. So I want your 3 top references, or the 3 most important references to you. I'm going to make 3 calls. Who do you want me to call?
The first one is going to be Rick Heller. He's someone, I played under for 3 years and then had the privilege of coaching with for a year and a half. And there's not many better people in the game, I don't think, than Rick Heller. So he's going to be one of them. Brian Furlong, it's funny, kind of came full circle with him. He was our director of ops when I was a freshman at Iowa. And then I ended up coaching under him for 2 years when we were at Heartland Community College. And then the last one right now is probably going to be Dusty Napoleon. And if he's listening to this, don't let it get to your head. But it's someone, it's funny with him. I came to a winter camp at Iowa when I was a senior in high school, and he was actually the volunteer assistant at Iowa at the time. Kind of connected with him, and he had a big part in getting me to Iowa. And I played against his dad. His dad's been a longtime coach in Illinois high school. Played against him, and now having stayed in contact with him all these years, and now having the chance to coach them has been pretty fun. So Rick Heller, Brian Furlong, and Dusty Napoleon.
Love it. Hey, so again, we'll keep the 3 sentences or less rule in play. Like I think Coach Heller is a magician. Like everywhere he's been, he's won, and it's like he only goes to places where it's almost impossible to win. He has the worst agent ever, apparently. Just kidding. I mean, obviously Iowa is an amazing school and institution, but no high school season. I mean, there's you guys know there's hurdles, right? Why is Coach Heller so great? Like, what's the secret sauce? Why is he so good at this?
The culture he's able to build, number one, is second to none. He came in at the time, I don't remember exact record. We were under 500 my freshman year. When he came in my sophomore year, he built a culture that just made us believe we were going to win. You respect him as a player. And then it's almost as if without saying the words, he demands perfection. He's going to try to get the most out of the talent that he has. And like you said, he's been in some places where they haven't always, especially when he was younger at the places he went to, they haven't always been able to get the top talent, and he's been able to get the most out of what he has. And just, he's a mastermind on both the offensive, defensive side and building the team culture.
Took Northern Iowa to the NCAA tournament. I'm sure it's a wonderful place. And I know Iowa's an amazing state. Everyone I've ever met from Iowa, I've loved. But think about that. Northern Iowa, that's like, I go to the University of Northern Antarctica, right? Like, I go to the coldest place on earth, but colder, but actually north of there, right? Just kidding. I mean, I'm taking shot on eye, but yeah, awesome. Really cool. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, mine would be Coach Tracy Smith. Played for him at Indiana, and then coached with him at Arizona State. Coach Schlossnagle here at A&M. Guy's awesome. Absolutely just electric human. I mean, you've got to meet him. Just great dude, great baseball guy. And then third would be a guy named Mike Shirley, who's the head scout now for the White Sox, but a guy I grew up training with and going to, and really, really, if it wasn't for him, I'm not sure, where I'd be in this game. So he's a big part of my baseball career.
So, Michael, Coach Slosh is, obviously his resume is, incredibly impressive. Just give me one thing that's really stood out to you, like someday you get to be a head coach and something you've seen Slosh do over a few months. It's kind of one of those, oh my gosh, I am definitely taking that with me someday.
It is just overall attention to details on another level. I mean, he sees everything, he's aware of everything, and just his overall ability to have feel and communicate with the players is really, really good. Like, just, obviously knows a ton about baseball, but, as well as I do, dealing with college athletes, like having some feel and just communicating with them, like the way he does it's just off the charts. And I think it's obvious why he's had success.
Yeah. It's just like every I is dotted, every T is crossed. It's he's one of those guys like that reminds me of like the Dan McDonald's, those guys where they could go run a Fortune 50 company. They could run a college baseball program. They're just, baseball is just what they chose. So love it. Todd, go ahead. Who am I calling?
You're going to call Robert Ruiz from Westmont. Yes. That's where I went to school. He's an awesome dude, man. Been very good to me. Anybody on that staff, really. I mean, like, Coach Cockle, Elijah Ontiveros. I mean, I love those guys over there. And then I'd say, the last school I was at, I think you can give Chase Sane a call over there. And my last guy, I have to say is my current boss, Serrano. He's had a huge influence on me growing up and getting into college baseball. So he'd be the guy.
So you grew up with one of the Serrano boys. You grew up with Kyle, is that right?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
So like same high school, or like when did you guys get connected?
Well, he lived across the street from me. So when we were really little, I would always be throwing the ball outside against the wall. And when Dave would go to work, he would pull over and just say, "My kid plays baseball. You should call him and play catch with them." And then we became friends, hung out at the field like every single day when his dad was at Fullerton and a little bit at Tennessee as well. So yeah. that's kind of how that all came about.
So I'm going to ask you a question in a second, Todd, but Coach Serrano's resume is really unbelievable. I mean, like he's not a self-promoter, so you just have to know it. But this dude's got a national championship ring as an assistant coach. He's, part of the heyday at Cal State Fullerton, including the Augie Garrido days. Then he goes and coaches in the SEC right when the SEC is going from unbelievable conference to like just completely nuclear, like 14 teams that could win the national championship. I mean, as crazy
different
as
beast.
it is. And now back. But I mean, think about it. He took two different schools to the College World Series as a head coach. Irvine
Yeah.
and so similar to what I did with Jimmy. Like if you had to boil like Coach Serrano's greatest strength, or something that really jumps out about him, what's the number one thing?
I mean, he keeps everybody loose, man. I mean, he loves being at the field. I mean, he loves to give guys a hard time, but I mean, he's a baseball guy, man. He loves to be at the field, so he can just keep things loose. You can't be intimidated by him.
Yeah, he's great, man. I
Yeah.
never forget coaching against him. When he's, to me, one of the great guys at calling a game. I just never forget being in the other dugout with him calling pitches and just feeling like, man, this is like watching Bobby Fischer play chess. I mean, just so good. But yeah, really good. Max, go ahead. Who are my three calls?
Well, the first one I'd say would be my current boss, Coach Rick Hertensteiner at Pepperdine University. He's been an unbelievable influence on my life, and getting to learn from him every day and see him kind of approach what he does every day has been a blessing, especially with his families. He's got a huge family, and they're all around, and it's good to have, a family element to the yard when you show up to it every day, and it's cool to be working for people who prioritize their family. Second, I would say, is Coach Greg Moore from St. Mary's, who was formerly at Cal State Northridge. I was a grad assistant for him for a year. He's another guy who's really unique person, just one of the most unique people I've been around, and taught me so much in a year, but really someone who, you when you've been around him, like there's only one person like him. And then the last one would be my junior college coach, Alex Cockle, who's now the head coach at Glendale College, but formerly the assistant coach when I played there. But he's one of the most knowledgeable people I've been around in baseball, and I'd probably put him down as my third call. But it's tough to go him. It's tough not to say Jim Lawler, even though he just retired, because Coach Lawler, being the legend that he was, being at Pepperdine for the last 2 years, spending 20 with Coach Johnson at Texas A&M. Before that, he's kind of a guy who, I think I would potentially have make a phone call for me too. But it's been a blessing to be around just people like that.
I didn't know Jim Lawler was at Pepperdine. Was he? So what? How did he get connected to you guys at Pepperdine?
I think happenstance. A couple years ago, our pitching coach left to take a job in pro ball at the break, and Coach Lawler just got connected with our head coach and came in and filled a void for us for a couple years. And what an unbelievable wealth of knowledge to be around on a daily basis, and to get to be in his back pocket as a grad assistant was something that is forever invaluable to me.
Yeah. Hey, you said Coach Hurt has a big family. You're talking about number of kids?
Oh, the number of kids.
How many? Let's put a number on us. What's he got?
5 of them.
Yes.
There's Cade, Cullen, Crosby, Coulter, and Cash. And they're great, especially around youth camp time. They're always.
Wait a second. Did you say 5 boys? Is it 5
boys?
boys?
Oh yeah, 5 boys, and they're awesome. Like they're
That's
incredible.
Awesome. Oh.
And they're always there when you need a jolt of energy at the yard, and to rag you on how bad your parking spot is and whatever they got to do to just get you going. It's good. It really brings out the compete in you. So it's a good spot
that's
to
so
be.
awesome. I love Coach Hurt. You talk about the opposite of a self-promoter. Coach Hurt would sooner cut off himself. He's the best. Oh, that's really good. Dallas, go ahead. Who are my 3 calls?
The first one would be my current boss here, Rob Cooper. There's not a lot of better people out there in this game, and people that can dynamically communicate and coach the way that he's able to do, and what he's been able to do for not only the players here, but also helping me as a coach, for my career. And it's something I probably won't ever be able to repay him for, but that'd be my first call. The second one would be Arnie Chavera. So Arnie is the athletic director at Blackhawk Community College. He's a longtime head coach at Blackhawk, he was my first boss. So he gave me an opportunity to get into the college coaching, and ironically was the first coach to recruit me out of high school. And I told him no. So I was happy that he took me back after my college career was over. But he's a super dynamic human. He's a guy that, is very competitive, but also unbelievable at communicating and being able to still be able to be authentically himself. And he taught me a lot. He let me make a lot of positive things happen my early years coaching, and also let me make some mistakes. And that's not easy for somebody that's been doing it for a long time to let somebody come in and do that. So he would be one. And then the other one would actually be Coach Serrano. So him and I spent some time in a dugout together at West Virginia University. And, there's not many people when you're in the dugout with them and they don't have cleats on and you feel like you're going to win because they're in the dugout with you. And just how he handles things on a day-to-day basis. And he's extremely organized, and not only, with everybody else but himself, but also keeps things loose. And he's amazing, and you get a PhD in baseball if you're lucky enough to be around him enough. So those would be my three.
Awesome. So Dallas, did you know Coach Cooper before you came to Penn State? Or, I mean, obviously you'd played in the Big Ten, but what was your connection to Coach Cooper before you got to Penn State?
I didn't know him very well. No. So he coached in the Big Ten after I was done playing there.
Okay.
Coach Serrano was more the connection line there. So
got it.
They knew each other, and that's kind of how that worked out. So, but mostly through USA baseball stuff, and also both of them are West Coast guys.
I love that Coach Cooper is connected to Sac City. Like it's the phrase I'm thinking of is they're like baseball linguists, like Coach Weinstein and Coop. It's like I have to really think baseball. It's just like their fluency. What was anything really jumped out at you as you started to work with Coach Cooper? Like something that jumped out, like, oh man, I didn't realize this, but that's really an awesome trait that he has.
I think his ability to read not only players but practice situations, know when we need to pull things back and or put on the gas. I think him being able to not only coach the skill side of it, but also I think he's so good at being able to coach the other side, the mental side. So I think that part is something I wasn't around a whole lot. Obviously, growing up, we didn't, it wasn't a big thing for me anyhow. But I think being able to see that part of the game integrated in with our players, that was kind of like, okay, there's a different side of this. So
love it.
Special.
Oh, that's really cool. Really cool. Nice job, boys. All right, next round. So think about an opponent. It could be from your playing days. It could really be from your coaching days, but an aspect of an opponent that you really, really like. Like I've given this example many times. Like we used to coach against Florida State, and they have that crazy right field, and they would just literally murder fastballs away. And the only pitch that was effective against them was fastball in, and who's got that consistently? And then they would kill the first fastball away. So you're thinking, okay, they're free swingers, but no, with 2 strikes, they'll fight you to death. So, like Florida State offensive approach, but I'll stop right there. So Jimmy, give me an aspect of opponent that really has struck you. That's something you run your own program someday. Hey, I'd love to pull that with me. Go ahead.
Well, when I was playing, we would play against Indiana. And it was back in the day when they went to the College World Series, and they had Travis, Schwarber, that whole lineup. So my thing would be basically just recruit a Kyle Schwarber at every position. It'd be pretty well.
That's hard to do, though, because his whole family went to Ohio State. Now there's a little bit of Haley's comment on that one.
I'll go a little different route, though, in all seriousness. When I was catching Michigan, one thing I remember, I didn't have the best arm behind the plate, and I remember their base running was something that, it didn't intimidate me, but as a catcher, it was always, it was always in the back of my mind that they kind of did everything well. Offense, defense, anything part of the game. But base running was something that, it's not talked about a lot in baseball or taught very well. It's starting, I think, to make a little bit of a turn in terms of how we're teaching it. But that was just something that if you can create havoc on the bases, not only obviously are you looking to advance a base, but now all of a sudden the pitcher's thinking about you and he spins that hanging breaking ball to your best hitter. Now you start putting balls out of the yard. So it was just something that always caught my attention when I was playing. And it's something I like to bring to each team I've been with, is how important the aspect of base running can be to an offense. That's
awesome. And you were playing against Coach Bakich's Michigan teams, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so funny, like that goes back to Vandy, which goes back to Clemson, and then those big physical athletes that run, and yeah, that's really, hey man, it was such a big part of the MLB playoffs this year, which was so encouraging to see. Really cool. Yep.
I don't think you notice it until something either really bad happens or something really good happens, and you don't want to be on the side of something really bad happening, which sometimes you do see a lot of. And so it was just an interesting part of the game that I always noticed of them.
Love it. Yeah, of course. Go ahead, Michael.
For me, it's the Oregon State teams when Pat Casey and Nate Yeske were there. It was a little bit of everything, but it was just their overall identity where you had a lead in the 7th or the 8th, and you were just kind of waiting for them to beat you. And they were just, I used to call them when we'd play them, and that's back when the Patriots were rolling. I'm like, this is the Patriots of college baseball. Like, they don't do anything wrong. They are extremely just competitive and tough and literally just never out of the game. Some of the best, I mean, the team that lost 4 games in regular season, I got to play, coach against them. And then the team that won the national championship the next year, like, how hard is that? Got to coach against them. So they're just overall presence was, it was just different. Like, it was really different. Coach Yeske probably gets tired of me asking questions about him about every day, but it was, I mean, if you got to see those guys play or play against them, there was just how they carried themselves, went about it. Like, they literally thought they were never going to lose, and they rarely did.
It's my favorite argument, Michael, to get into is that I say what Pat Casey did at Oregon State is the best program building job in the history of the NCAA, any sport. Bring it. Like, let's go. Let's have that conversation. I mean, the dude won 3 national championships at Oregon State. No offense to Corvallis, Oregon, but it's not a metropolis. It's way north. We're a warm weather sport. I mean, it's unthinkable. And then you mentioned the 2017 team that didn't win it. They showed up in Omaha with a record of 54-4. That's not even possible to do. Like, how do you even do? If we said to some program, hey, you could have 77 scholarships next year, you couldn't show up in Omaha 54-4. So yeah, that's love that. Yeah, you nailed it. Very cool. Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, I'll go with a team that's really well balanced just throughout the order, that puts the ball in play and does not strike out. Teams like that are a pain. Last year we played a school called Davenport, and they had one of the best offenses. I mean, this is my first year in Division II, so this is, or Division I, I'm sorry. But yeah, last year in Division II, I haven't seen it. I mean, I haven't seen a team that could hit like that. It was insane. We beat them to get into Cary, and we threw 2 starters, like all of our setup guys, our closers, and it was like 11-9 or something like that. And it was miserable to see. I mean, they raked.
Was their 2-strike approach, Todd, something that stood out, or it was just like it didn't matter what the count was? They were just destroying baseballs.
Yeah, if you got to 2 strikes, they wouldn't even strike out. They'd put the ball, they'd just crush it somewhere. But yeah, I mean, their approach was pretty impressive.
Someone else was on one of these calls earlier in the year, and they referenced University of Tampa as one of those teams. And I think we've all faced that. Sometimes it's like when you're facing that team, but they're just so offensive that you just you just feel like if a ball's any part of the middle of the plate, it's going to leave, and not going to be good. It's just not.
You just gotta hope they hit it at somebody.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I love it. Good. Max, go ahead.
2 years in a row, I had the good fortune of coaching against Bakich, or not coaching. I was a grad assistant, so technically I was just hanging out in the dugout and watching. But getting to see Bakich's staffs in 19 and 20 with between Tommy Henry and Hajar, and kind of just the way they were coming at you, just left-handed, tall, long, and just bringing it the entire game. And both of those guys had 2 really impressive outings against teams that I was fortunate to be a part of. And I would say that those, just the way that they attacked for 27 outs was very impressive to me.
Yeah, because they would play you guys on their West Coast swing, right? They would always come play you guys.
The first year I was at Cal State Northridge, they came and played 3 there. And then the next year I was at Pepperdine, and they came and played 3 more on their West Coast swing that year. Yeah. I think we closed it out. I think they were our last outs before COVID.
Yeah.
But Fetter's staffs there when he was there were very impressive to me, and the way that they just were coming, and you kind of knew they were coming, but you some days you were going to hit them, and some you weren't.
Max, your eyes weren't tricking you. There were 3 second rounders on that staff, and their pitching coach, Chris Fetter, is now the Tigers' big league pitching coach. So your eyes weren't tricking you. That was real stuff. So Oh, that's awesome. Dallas, what are you going with?
I would say in 18, I don't know if they had their best year. They have TCU, the way they ran the bases, and also it helped with their approach at the plate. But every 3-1, every 3-2, they were going, and it really very rarely had anything to do with the situation. They were going to put pressure on you, and I'm sure there were times they didn't if the situation was just not it. But teams that can do that, and they can put pressure, they can shorten and lengthen the field on you with short game, and it just puts a lot of pressure on you, and you could look at, we played Arizona here a few years ago, and those guys could really bang the ball around. But the teams that can run on you, you can't get behind in the count, and then if you do, you're playing right into their game, and they're not afraid to use the big part of the field. So I think watching them be able to just consistently put that pressure on your catcher and your pitcher, it's really tough to get in a rhythm on the mound, and it's really tough to make sure you're getting good momentum to make your throws, because you've got to make sure it's a strike, or else it's a walk. But I'd say that's probably the biggest problem I've come across.
Bill Mozillo, obviously the offensive coordinator at TCU, very famous, just like a savant. Mo is one of my favorite baseball conversations. Just you talk about a guy that loves the game, and like super old school, but has made it relatable. He went college baseball, pro baseball. Coached Mike Trout in the minor leagues. Now back to big time college baseball. He's been in every power league you could be in. That's a great observation. Really like it. Let's do this one, boys. Jimmy, I'm going to come back to you. Give me a player from your current program that we should look out for in 2022. Could be, some of you guys have only been where you are for the last few months. So, if you have to kind of take a guess, it's not, we're not taking odds. It's not a wager or anything like that. But, somebody that really stuck out at you from your fall, maybe your best player, maybe a player that made a big jump, current program, player to look out for in 2022. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot to watch the game and see this, but Anthony Calarco, he was someone, I was at Iowa last year, and it's someone I had to pitch against and plan against to try and beat, and he's just, I guess the biggest compliment I could give him is he's a professional hitter. He can beat you in more ways than one. He can hit, he can hit for power. He's not an easy, he's not a home run or a strikeout kind of guy. He played all first base for Northwestern last year, but now he's become more athletic, playing a little bit of third base. He's someone from an opposing side that I thought, even though the draft was only 20 rounds, I thought he was going to be drafted and gone last year. And at that time, I was at Iowa. I was hoping he was going to be drafted and gone. But now, being at Northwestern, and he's kind of the captain of the team, the bloodline of the team. So, if he goes, we go.
Jimmy, that's where you start making anonymous calls to scouts, grab your wife or girlfriend's phone, and just start.
Yeah.
Coach Murphy claims that he got Brandon Crawford drafted the one year because there was no way that he could come back to UCLA.
I guess it was just in my subconscious that I was going to end up at Northwestern, so I didn't want him. I wanted to be able to coach him for one more year.
That's good. Yeah, your instincts were spot on. That's awesome.
Yeah,
hey, is he a right-handed hitter or left-handed hitter?
Left-handed hitter.
Nice. Love it. Go ahead, Michael.
Going to get me in trouble with the other guys on this one. They're all pretty competitive, but I'll have to go with Jack Moss, who was at Arizona State, with me last year. He's a year better, stronger, and I think he's going to really be an impact bat in the SEC. He's a really good hitter, big lefty. He's got some power, and more power's come, but he is just overall one of the best all-around hitters maybe I've ever had when it just comes to bat-to-ball skills. And it's funny, people tried to shift him last year, and he would just hit it through the hole and was trying to do it. So he is a very, very complete hitter, and his work ethic is off the charts.
Love it. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm buying stock in Jack Moss, no question. Todd, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Kai Moody. He's pretty much, he's gonna play a lot of center field for us this year. He's like a Kike Hernandez. I mean, he shows up to practice every day with like 3 different gloves and just goes all over the place. So he's awesome, man. He's an unbelievable kid. He has a ton of energy, and he brings a lot of energy to everything we do. So hopefully he hits like Kike hit in the postseason for us all year.
I love it. Yeah, his numbers were bonkers from last year. Hey, I wanted to ask you about a pitcher on your team. Is Blaine Traxel still there?
Yeah. He's
and he's
awesome.
like a
That's-
side
he's-
armor, right?
Yeah, I followed them last year. I mean, he's unreal, man. I saw him. I mean, when I saw his first bullpen of the fall, I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, he throws everything from. It's a different angle every time he throws the ball. I mean,
Oh, that's
I don't know
awesome.
how many pitches he throws. I mean, but yeah, he's crazy.
And he's a weekend starter for you guys, right?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, he's awesome.
See, I'm telling you, the side armors can weekend start. Like they don't have to be banished to the bullpen. I love that. Oh, good stuff. Go ahead, Max.
Again, I'm going to stick with my position group. I'm going to go with Ryan Johnson. He's a guy who, for us, has kind of moved into a leadership role in his third year with the team, and looks to have a big year this year and can play anywhere on the field. But really has shown that he can be a catcher and has developed as a catcher over the last 2 years. And he's someone I'm looking forward to seeing this year, and I think other people should be looking forward to seeing as well.
Ryan Johnson, love it. That name is familiar. Very cool. Go ahead, Dallas.
I'm going to go with a guy that actually spent his first 3 years pitching at Penn State and now is hitting in his third year of hitting. But technically, with the COVID year, he's kind of second year of hitting. I'm going to go with Cole Bartles. So last year was his first year ever really playing out a position since high school. I don't think his numbers were too great, but by the end of the year, he's just always in the middle of things. He threw out a guy to win the game at Iowa last year, and he started to really come on late in the season, and couldn't really find him a summer home. And the New England Futures League, a team takes him up there. He goes and wins MVP of the league. His home run derby champion, whatever. Came out this fall, and just there's not a lot of weaknesses in his bat. And you look at, you don't play for 3 years on the offensive side of things, or even a position. And then you have the COVID year, you're starting to get into it. And then you have last year, and it's funny, you look at his numbers and you go, it's probably right around what a freshman would be, considering we played all 42 of our games in the Big Ten. But I look, and he's a sixth-year senior in a master's program. He's a tough dude. He's from Boston. I think he's got a chance to have a breakout year. So it's kind of a wild card.
That's awesome. Where will he play? Will he DH, or does he have a true position?
He can play left. He can play right. He could probably play some center field. He'll play some first. He's extremely athletic. It's too bad he wasn't a dual guy from the very beginning. So,
That's awesome. Boys, this happens every week. It's like we've been talking for an hour. It felt like 3 seconds. I mean, it just flew by. So, and by the way, Max, your line about the day where you have a bad parking spot, Todd Gibson's in the chat over here, and I wasn't the only one that caught that. That was outstanding. I'm assuming that Pepperdine parking spots are at a premium. That would make sense. There is an ocean that is there. So, hey, fellas, before we say goodnight, on our text thread, I'm going to put a couple screen grabs of like podcasts that I'm listening to right now, books that I've really enjoyed from a leadership perspective. And I want you guys to do the same. Anything you listen to that's really impacted you in your leadership journey, anything that I love podcasts. So I'm always looking for new ones. Any books that you're reading, I would definitely be game for that too. And I'll kick us off when we hang up. And same thing, you guys were great. I mean, obviously so appreciative of you jumping on here and looking forward to stay in touch. And again, for everyone, just want to say thanks again to the presenting sponsor, Netting Professionals. These guys are incredible. They are huge supporters of our sport. We need to return the favor and thank them so much. So that's it. Show number 8 is in the books. Show number 9 will be next week. We got every Sunday night through the end of the year. And that is it. Everybody have a good night, and we'll catch you next week.